Welcome. Thank you so much for being here, spending time with me today. I'm Agata from FullStory. Did fly over across the Atlantic yesterday to be here with you all today. And I'm so excited to talk with you all about a topic that is so important and near and dear to my heart, which is curiosity. Now, I'm going to go off script just a little bit, if that's okay with you all, and share with you a story that I just couldn't not share. So yesterday I got to Zurich, and I'm staying at like this little apartment, Airbnb type thing. And I put my bags down and I'm walking around the apartment. It's a lovely apartment, but it's very sparse. There's like no paintings, no posters. It's very modern, very sleek and minimal, which I love. There's one sign in the entire apartment, and it's in the area where there's a TV, there's a modem, there's like a DVD player, all the electronics. And there's a sign, the only sign in the entire apartment, and it reads this. I wrote it down to share it with you all today. The future belongs to the curious, the ones who are not afraid to try it, explore it, poke at it, question it, and turn it inside out. It then goes on to say, please fight your curiosity, your urges. Don't touch any of this shit. Don't press any buttons. Don't try to reset the modem. Don't do anything. If you have a question, call me. And I love this for two reasons. One, it was just an absolutely hilarious sign, like, welcome to the apartment. Don't touch my stuff. But also, like, how relevant. I mean, literally, the only words written anywhere in the entire apartment are about curiosity. So I saw it. I was like, I have to share this with you all today because it was just so relevant. So curiosity, why are we here to talk about curiosity? Because the best high-performing teams, for those teams, curiosity is a compulsion. It is a relentless drive to learn, to spark innovation, to ultimately deliver differentiated value to your users. But curiosity is also a muscle that we need to flex. And when we don't, we risk atrophy of that muscle. And when you lose curiosity, when you lose creativity in your organization, what ends up happening is it ends up showing up in your product. And if it shows up in your product, it's going to show up in your business metrics. It's going to show up in your team and the culture. And it's just not anywhere we want to be. It impacts your team. It impacts your customers. So we want to fight to stay curious. What I'm going to share with you all over the next 20 or so minutes are three things. One, I'm going to do another story, the one I plan to tell. I'm then going to share with you all a framework for how to think about the blend of curiosity and also action, because ultimately we got to ship some stuff. So we'll talk about that framework so you can see where all the different parts are and where you and your teams are. And then I'm going to give you 5 tips and tricks, ingredients, so to speak, to help you identify ways of building a culture or keeping a culture of curiosity in your organizations. So let's begin. That's me. I'm Agata. I run product at FullStory. If you haven't heard of FullStory, I'll just quickly, the elevator pitch. We're essentially a digital experience analytics platform that combines both the quantitative and the qualitative. So if you want to understand, well, one, we'll tell you if your conversion rates have dipped or your login rates are going south, but we'll also tell you why with session replay. That's what we do. FullStory, y'all. Sorry, I say y'all. I'm from the South. It means all of you. FullStory is the ultimate curiosity playground. For those of you who use it, I hope you do. If you don't, I'll tell you from my own experience, you can be in that tool all day just exploring, asking questions, and learning so much more about your users and their behaviors in your product. The story. It's going to be about cow paths. If you don't know what a cow path is, the first time I heard that word, I was like, what the hell is a cow path? Cow paths are essentially the following. We build experiences for our users, right? There are humans in mind that we have, and we build things for them. And we create workflows, we create experiences that we expect them to take. They have a goal in mind, and we're helping them get to that goal. Sometimes, oftentimes, users do whatever the hell they want to. And they don't take your path. They don't take the journey that you have built for them, just like here. Y'all, there's a sidewalk and it is paved. And all these people, they don't care because they have found a different way to get to their destination. So the story goes like this. About 10 years ago, there was a group of 8 Google engineers, brilliant minds, who liked working with each other. And they wanted to start a company. And so they did. They wanted to build what they thought was the best idea ever, which was software, it was basically marketing agile software. They got together, they built a beautiful product, and a product that users would use to some extent. But they didn't know exactly what people were doing in the product. And so what did they do? They instrumented some events. So then at least they had some visibility that people were logging in and doing some things. But what they realized was people weren't doing the things that they wanted them to do. And engagement would go like this and it would plateau and it would go down south. Well, that's not good. And they had no idea why. They had an insatiable curiosity, right? What is happening? The product's beautiful. We know it's beautiful. People have told us it's beautiful and they want it, but they're showing up and they're not actually doing the thing that we expect them to do. They were curious. It was a black box. They couldn't answer the questions they had in their head. This, my friends, is what led to the invention of session replay. Because you had this team who literally had no idea what was happening in the product, and their curiosity led them to inventing FullStory. So 3,000 customers later, here we are today, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff in FullStory other than session replay. But the reason I love this story is because literally the curiosity is what led them to the pivot and building of something that was much more valuable, that actually solved a pain for users, the same pain that they had felt. And if they didn't have that curiosity, we would not be here today. So let's talk about curiosity, because that is why we're here today. Here's the framework that I promised I would walk you all through. As I walk you through this framework, I want you to think about, where are you on this framework? Where's your team? Where's your organization? And again, the axes here, as you can read, right, is curiosity, but also action, because we do need to build, we do need to ship. On the lower left-hand side is the word apathy. Apathy for product teams is poison. Apathy means you don't care. You don't give a shit. Sorry, I sometimes use adult language. It means you don't care about your users, your product, your company. This is where teams go to die. If you're apathetic, then you're essentially in maintenance mode. And that's not a place where you want to be, where you want your teams to be, where you want your company to be. If you go over to the right-hand side, my guess is if I took a poll, most of you would be here, where teams are building, they're shipping, they're delivering. To be clear, that's not a bad place to be. We ultimately have to deliver things to customers to create any value, especially, I like to joke, my team hates this, but it's true. PMs by themselves deliver zero value, zero. Because it's not until a customer gets their hands on a product and they use it and a pain has been resolved that you've actually delivered something. And so you have to ship. And we reward teams when they ship on time, under budget, and they hit their targets. We reward that, and the pressure is real. But like I said earlier, curiosity is a muscle that we have to flex. And so if you're not flexing that muscle, you're going to end up in the lower left-hand corner. That's no bueno. Teams need to be curious, they need to be creative. And so if you go up to the upper left-hand side, wondering, right, this is where teams, they're insatiably curious, they're asking questions, they're getting data, they're getting insights, they're talking to customers, fantastic place to be. But if you don't pair that with action, you have half-built designs, shifting priorities, and a bunch of swirl. You need to pair that curiosity with direction and end up, you guessed it, like any good framework, right, up and to the right. That's where you want to be. It's what we call intentional curiosity. I don't mean to imply that you're ever only in one box and that you don't switch between boxes. We absolutely do. And I think a great example of that is the product development lifecycle, right? Where at the beginning, if you're in discovery for a problem space, you are insatiably curious, hopefully, right? If your teams are doing the work the way you want them to do the work, which is they're asking questions, they're understanding, is this a real problem that's worth solving? If so, how? Talking to customers, you're gathering data, and that's fantastic. And then once you have more clarity on, yes, this is something we should solve for, and yes, we believe we have a solution that's going to work for our users, right? Your aperture is going to narrow, and you are going to be much more focused on delivering and getting that out the door. But we've said we want to be up and to the right. That's where we strive to be. So how do we get there? How do we stay there? I'm about to tell you. On the left-hand side, you can see several, again, I'll call them ingredients, right, that all play a very significant role in making sure that you have an organization that is intentionally curious. Let's dive in. Empathy. For teams to be curious, they have to care. I mean, it sounds basic, but they truly and deeply have to care and understand ultimately who are they building in service of. Product development, it's a service, right? You're building in support of somebody else. Someone else has a problem and you want to fix it for them. To do that, you have to care about that person, that user, whether it's a user, a buyer, whoever it is. You have to care. And so what that means is you truly have to understand their problems and you have to view the experience through their eyes. Now, in some cases, right, this can be easier, right? Because let's face it, if I'm a PM building software for PMs, right, then I'm closer to that end user. To be clear, that's also a dangerous place to be because there's going to be bias. And the pain that I have in my organization isn't necessarily going to be the same as the pain that someone else is having, but it's closer. You're closer to speaking someone's language. You're closer to understanding roughly what they might be experiencing. And you're also, unfortunately, more, what's the word I'm looking for? Forgiving of your own product's opportunities, right? Those little paper cuts that exist. You think about your product all day, you use it all day. It's a lot easier for you to know the workarounds and do the workarounds, right? And for our customers, that's not the same thing. But if you're building software for like doctors, nurses, right? You have to get to know the user and their problems and view the experience through their eyes. User research helps here, usability helps here, session replay, all those things absolutely help. I've have here a couple of what I would call tips on if you don't think that your organization has enough empathy or you don't have enough empathy, just some things that you can think about, you can take back to your day-to-day. The first is a journey map, a good old journey map. And this, by the way, this can be as easily done as on a piece of paper, on a whiteboard. It doesn't have to be in a tool. There are tools that will help you here. But really pull up a Google Doc and you can put together a journey map. But the what I mean here is you have to really understand the end-to-end experience of your customer. And that's outside of your application. That's outside the thing that you're working on. You have to understand what is the user doing before they show up. The 30 minutes before, what's the trigger? What is the catalyst that gets someone to say, oh, I need to go log in and do a thing? And then when they're in your product, what are they doing there? What are they not doing there? And then what do they do when they leave? Who are they talking to? Where's the data that you gave them? Where's that going? What actions are they taking? If you don't understand what happens before and after someone's in your product, then you actually don't understand your customer well enough to be confident that you're solving real problems for them. Jobs to be done. I'm sure it's a concept that many of you have heard of, but really truly understanding what is the job that someone has hired your product to do. Like in the example of FullStory, people aren't buying us because they want to use us. They want to watch sessions. They're hiring an analyst, someone to tell them, here's what's wrong. Here's how I know. Now go fix it. Jobs to be done is really important to abstract out the features that you have from the real reason that someone has chosen to explore your offering. And then, of course, session replay. Being able to experience the experience that your user had is critical. You might know that 10 people bought this widget and you're thrilled because your goal was 5. But if 20 people tried and they couldn't because they're like rage clicking because a button's broken or they're flip flopping because the search results are terrible, right? Session replay brings all this to life and really can help drive empathy for your customers. And it's really freaking painful sometimes. So that's empathy. Critical to have a culture of curiosity. Trust. Right? Giving voice to curiosity, it carries risk. Think about the last time that you were in a group setting at your company, a team meeting maybe, where you had a question and you weren't sure if you should ask it, right? Am I going to look stupid? Am I the only one who doesn't know that? Is this obvious to everybody else? Was I not paying attention earlier? Maybe they already covered it. Hey, is someone going to get offended if I ask? It can be really hard to ask questions. And so to have a culture of curiosity, you need trust in the organization. No matter how healthy the organization is, people need to feel comfortable asking questions. And when you have that trust, right, it unlocks curiosity, which, by the way, unlocks more trust. So it's like a virtuous cycle in a good way. 2 things here, 2 little tips in case you think that maybe this is something your organization struggles with. One is what we like to call question reception. As an individual, when you are asked a question, how do you show up? How do you show up to that question? Do you act offensive? Do you make it seem like something should be obvious? Or do you welcome that question, giving comfort to the person who asked it, as well as setting an example for everybody else? So, as an example, if I had a PM on my team who was like, Agata, why did we do this instead of that? There are two ways I could answer that question, right? If I answer it with a receptive mindset, right? The way to do that is to say, thanks so much for that question. I know it's one that probably many people are asking or wondering themselves. And so let me give you some color on that. Make it such that people feel comfortable asking questions. The other one was adding context. And this one is something I learned over the last couple of years, and also so much more important in a global and remote working environment, which is if you just slack someone a question, if I say, hey, Lucy, are we going to hit our targets for feature X with no additional context? Lucy's like hanging out in her bedroom in San Francisco, multitasking, going, "Oh my God, why is Agata asking me about this? Did she hear something? Did somebody say something? Am I in trouble? Does she not think we're going to hit our targets?" But if I add context, and if I say, "Hey Lucy, I noticed that we are seeing more engagement with feature Y over here than I expected. That's fantastic. I'm curious. Do you expect we're going to see the same thing over here? Or are there reasons to believe that we're actually not going to hit our targets?" That gives Lucy context on why I'm even asking the question. It disarms her, and it creates, again, this culture where asking questions is welcomed. And it's just such an important aspect of making sure that you have an organization where people can be curious and feel comfortable being curious. Passion. Teams that are passionate, they give a shit, right? They care. They have an insane amount of agency and ownership. If you care about the thing that you are doing, you are going to do a better job at it. Full stop. That's just human nature. Some of us might be working on things that we're not passionate about though. Like I'm a nerd. I love analytics. I just do. But maybe some people on my team don't care as much about it. We're not saving lives, y'all. We're not. Wish we were, but we're not. And so for some people, it is actually hard to feel incredibly passionate about the product and the space. But the trick here is to connect it to something that does matter, where folks are interested and motivated. So, for instance, maybe someone is really they really want to learn a lot, right? They're a lifelong learner and they want to learn new skills and whatnot. Connect the work to that. The user, connect the work to the user. When you know that somebody is depending on you to do their job and to do it well, if you screw up, that's not great. And so connecting it to a human, right, who's ultimately depending on you, that can motivate people. So forget event instrumentation or auto capture, but it's the human, it's the PM that's trying to do their job better. And you know what? If you help them, they might get promoted. How great is that? So connect the work that you're doing to things that actually matter to you or your teams. Again, passionate teams, they care, and they're going to do a better job with their work. Access. Get data easily accessible to your teams or yourself. There are a few things that's frustrating as having curiosity and have it fall flat. If 5 times out of 5 that you ask an analytics team a question, you don't get an answer, or if you want to talk to customers and there's all sorts of red tape that prevents you from doing so, that is frustrating. That's where you start to get in that lower left-hand corner. And so whether it's you who is struggling to get access or your teams, make sure that you make it easy for people to be curious, because if you don't, they're going to stop. It's really, really critical. And so a couple things here that have helped me over my career and also at FullStory that I wanted to call out. This first one is called One Number. The first time we did this, I was like, oh, this isn't going to work, guys. But it did. It was great. So what is One Number? One Number is when you have a team meeting and you begin that, or during that meeting, everybody in the meeting goes around and shares one number, something that is relevant to where they're spending their time and the work that they're doing. So it could be 20 people engaged with my newly launched feature. That's great. So then you could talk about that. It could be 0, the number of customers I'm actually able to talk to about this thing I'm trying to solve. It could be 150%. we hit our target, we exceeded our target by 150. It's whatever the person wants to bring in and talk about, but that one number can tell you so much about one, are your teams curious? Are they bringing in data and learning in ways that can spark action? Are they struggling? Like if you get a PM and 2 weeks in a row, they've talked to 0 customers, that's a problem. And now you know, and you can help figure out how to solve it with that individual. Also, it's a really good way to elevate what good looks like across the team. So if you have a team of product managers, as an example, and some of them are coming in with phenomenal numbers and data and insights, and you can tell backed by a ton of curiosity, and some are not. You elevate what good looks like. It sets a good example for these folks and helps them understand what the bar is. So a lot of great things come out of this one number. Watch parties, a lot of our customers tell us they do this, we do this too. Making session replay, making it accessible to understand how users are actually engaging with your product. Watch parties, the catalyst can be anything, just because it's Friday, or maybe it's because you just launched something. But essentially, you get into a room or virtually, and for 10, 20 minutes, you just watch sessions. Your engineers are there, your PMs, your designers, and everyone's staring at the same, usually terrible experience that your customers are having. And you talk about the wins and the winces, and there are usually more winces because we like to poke at all the things that are wrong. But it can be such a great way to drive curiosity, because you're all in the moment. You're also having dialogue like, oh crap, we didn't realize that that would be misleading. What if we did X? What if we did Y instead? But again, the easy access to it is what enables your teams to have that conversation and to have that dialogue. And then there's customer dialogue. And this one is interesting, right? I mean, we should be talking to our customers. That is known. And yet, how many of us actually do? I once worked in an organization where I was not allowed to talk to customers, which is crazy. But for various reasons, there were certain things in place that prevented any given PM from reaching out. Did a bunch of stuff to go around that. If you're curious what I did, I'll tell you, but not here. And so the customer dialogue is critical. And there are many ways to make sure that this is happening in your organization. I mean, one, you could mandate it, again, either for your team or for yourself, or you can say, hey, every week I talk to 5 customers. And if I don't, that's a fail. So you can mandate it, you can set goals, but you can also just set an example, right? And lead with, here are 3 things I learned this week by talking to my customers. And anyone can do this. I, as a leader, this is something that I do. Where even this morning, I happened to be on an EBR, an executive business review, where we had a great dialogue with the customer, and they said a bunch of things that I'm like, my team should hear this. Right after that, bunch of slacks. Hey guys, some things I heard. Right, to set the example and set the expectation that if you're not talking to your customers, you are not as data informed as you should be. And if in your organization you do have sort of legal or whatever issues that prevent you from having easy access to customers, there are things that you can do just to kind of go around that. But you didn't get it from me. I didn't say a thing. And then lastly, speed, right? We need to move with urgency, especially in this moment, right? We all know what's going on in the world. We have to move with urgency. So when we get new insights, it's not until we deliver something to customers that it actually matters. Ideas are great. Those are not dollars in the bank. A couple of things here that I found to be very, very helpful to make sure that we're striking the right balance of curiosity and action. One is experimentation, right? Which is maybe a little obvious to some of you, but essentially experimentation could be a very, very fast way to learn objectively what works and what doesn't, which experience is better than the other, and then just go on and ship that to customers. Time boxing. This is one that is probably one of my favorites of everything I'm sharing with you all today. It's one of my favorites, and it's so easy to do, which is time box your curiosity. Work takes the time you give it. I don't know about you all, but like we have quarterly planning and annual planning. And guess what? If you give a team a quarter, they're gonna take a quarter. And if you say, hey, what would it take for us to get an answer within a week? 2 weeks. That's the time you have. At the 2-week mark, we need a decision. When you know that, it helps you understand, okay, how do I get that information in this limited time frame? You prioritize who you're talking to, you prioritize what questions you're asking, you prioritize which data points really matter and which ones don't. It's such an easy thing to do. To be clear, we started doing this recently, so it's not obvious, but the time boxing is such a great helpful forcing function to make sure that you're finding the right balance of curiosity and creativity with action. And then the last one, risk appetite. Again, especially in this moment, making sure there's alignment on what is our risk appetite. The reality is, if something's actually going to take you a day to build, guess what? It's probably going to take you a day to undo it. You shouldn't spend 2 weeks talking to customers, right? If you have strong gut and product sense, just build it. But you have to know that that's okay, right? And if your organization is one that's maybe risk averse, or maybe you're nervous, right, because things aren't going so well in the macroeconomic environment, your teams need permission, right, to move quickly where it makes sense. And so risk appetite is something that's critical to align on. If something does take 6 months to build and it's more of a one-way door, right, do the research. Be insatiably curious. There are times when it matters more than others. Getting that alignment is really important up front. All right. So I've walked through the framework and all the different things that it takes to be intentionally curious in our organizations. Again, we want to be in that upper right hand box. If we're not, that's okay. Just name it, understand why, and do what you can to move into that box. And again, sometimes you're not going to be able to be there, and that's okay. But at least if you know where you are, then you can figure out how to get there, right? Because the best product teams, for them, curiosity is a compulsion, and it is that relentless drive to learn, that curiosity that ultimately helps them innovate better and faster than the competition. But for that, you need a team that cares about their customers, they're empathetic to their customers, an organization where there's trust, where people can ask questions and spend the time. Passion. You need people to be motivated by the thing that they are doing and they're passionate. Access to customers, to data, lower those barriers, and of course, speed. Because ultimately, if you don't act, it really doesn't matter. At the beginning of this talk, I shared a quote or a set of words that I saw on a wall in my apartment here in Zurich. And I'm going to read them again as a bookmark to this topic. Right? The future belongs to the curious, the ones who are not afraid to try it, explore it, poke at it, question it, and turn it inside out. The future belongs to the curious. So let's fight for that curiosity in our organizations. Thank you.